When you're caught in the downward spiral of negative emotions, it's very easy to feel like you have lost control and have no power. But I'm here today to tell you, my friend, you can take back that power. We're going to talk about developing healthy coping strategies that will help you not only stop the downward spiral of negative emotions, but reverse it. Do you want to achieve your goals, but anxiety is tripping you up? Like to keep those fun weekend plans, but depression has you counseling again? Hey, I'm Lori, dog mom, lover of nature, and hygge enthusiast. Positive psychology skills help me overcome chronic severe PTSD. If you're ready to learn how to overcome your anxiety and depression and rediscover happiness and purpose in life, then get your cozy on and let's get started. Are you one of those people that likes to hear news first? If so, I encourage you to sign up for our newsletter. The link is in the comments below, and this is where you're going to hear first about upcoming workshops with dates, sign up links, and all that kind of other fun information. There are some workshops coming right around the corner, so be sure to sign up today so you can get that information in your email before everybody else. When you're caught up in negative emotions such as depression, anxiety, fear, anger, you name it, sadness, it can feel like that's your total identity, your total reality. When in truth, emotions are simply data. They are providing information about where you are in that moment and how, based off that data, to get to where you want to be. So think about it this way. Your life is a ship, you're the captain, and you're holding a compass, which represents your emotions. As the captain, you are looking at your compass or your emotions and processing the data that compass is giving you so that you can successfully navigate your life or the ship to where you want to be. Now, the emotions or the compass can tell you if you're too far to the right or to the left or right on track to be able to reach the destination you want to get to. And you can make adjustments accordingly. So today we're going to talk about what emotions do to us, how we can interrupt that negative downward spiral, and give you some practical tools to help you accomplish that. So first of all, let's look at negative emotions. Negative emotions, as I mentioned before in some of the previous podcasts, they can narrow your aperture and narrow the window of the information that is being allowed into your system, like literally in a physical sense as well as emotionally. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. In fact, negative emotions were given to us to facilitate survival to some degree. Because if you're being attacked for whatever reason and you need to survive that moment, it's heightening your senses and heightening your awareness of the items that you need to pay attention to that's going to make a difference in whether or not you survive. So let's just take a modern day example. You're walking along a cliff's edge and you know there's some danger there, but you have to navigate this cliff to be able to successfully get to where you need to go. Well, you're going to be hyper focused on every step you take, how the ground feels, if rocks are crumbling, when you need to step back, any kind of signs of erosion that are indicating soft earth beneath you. So it heightens your awareness of things you need to focus on while you're completely losing focus of other things around you. If you understand that, negative emotions are not a bad thing. They can actually be a good thing and are given to us for your survival. However, the high intensity of negative emotions can become harmful and increase the risk of disease, including heart disease, if they are sustained for too long of a period of time. And they can affect our outcome in other ways. So they have a narrowing effect on us, which again can be helpful if you need that narrowed attention focus. But they're narrowing the effects of your thinking, your feeling, and your behavior, and over a sustained period of time can affect your well-being, your overall well-being. So if an individual is focusing excessively on negative side of an event, which is narrowing their attention, their focus may result in ruminating or thinking, which can trigger other negative emotions or feelings such as anger, insecurity, and frustration. And in turn, those emotions can lead to even further rumination, withdrawal, and so on. And it becomes a downward spiral that gets tighter and tighter until you can eventually end up feeling like I'm worth nothing. I have no self-worth. I have no control. Others ignore me. I am alone. I'm in this by myself. and it can cause a negative spiral to further intensify. Now, it's important to understand that the negative spiral is not an automatic condition of having negative emotions. It is rather the inability of the person to effectively deal with those negative emotions that are at hand. That negative spiral can, in fact, be counteracted. There's ways that you can interrupt that negative downward spiral with positive emotions intentionally. This can be something you can do with forethought. And it's that process that we want to talk about today, how to interrupt that downward spiral and get those emotions back under control. And the first thing I recommend you do is gain some distance. So this is just taking one step back from your emotions to be able to gain a little bit of perspective. So it's important before we go too far down this path for you to understand, again, negative emotions are not bad. They do not define who you are. They are just feelings. They're data that you're getting. And it's important to know that you need to acknowledge those emotions. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more, but don't try to hide from them. But it's just a matter of learning how to handle them. So emotions are neither good nor bad. They're just data. And when I first began to understand that, it helped me take a huge step back in my own emotional battle. And I've talked to you before in an earlier episode about the 4 phases of PTSD, and one of them is extreme emotions, negative emotions, or having struggle feeling positive emotions. And I dealt with that a lot. Coming to realize that negative emotions are just data, and it doesn't necessarily define who I am. It's just a feeling I'm having right now that indicates something else, really helped liberate me from the trap of feeling like this was who I was. So taking some time to understand and that step back. And one way to do that is using some mindfulness without judgment and just taking a step back and looking at yourself. How am I feeling? What exactly am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? Without judgment. Again, feelings are just data. It is not wrong to feel a certain way. It's neither good nor bad. It's just an indication of what's going on. So taking a bit of mindfulness without judgment and just assessing what you're feeling. And one thing that can help you with that, which is a very practical tool, is a feelings wheel. And I know you're probably like, okay, this is a little too touchy-feely for me. But it actually is very helpful to develop your emotional intelligence, which is a topic we'll get into further in future episodes. But the more words you have to attach to how you're feeling, to more accurately describe how you're feeling, the greater your emotional intelligence. It helps increase that. And to be able to effectively describe that to yourself and to others is a powerful tool. And to help you learn that, you can get this emotion wheel that has, I don't know, I can't remember how many, but somewhere around 30 or 60 different emotional words, ranging from, really, really negative to very, very positive and everything in between. And it can help you more accurately describe how you're feeling when you're taking that step back. Another really critical step, and I alluded to this a minute ago, was accepting or acknowledging how you're feeling. I can remember when my counselor first talked to me about this, and I'm like, what? Because for the longest time, I felt like I had to school my emotions to fit what they, quote, should be. And I remember talking to him one time, and he says, Lori, just take a moment to feel it and accept it before you look at trying to solve it. And that's an odd concept, but I did it. I was in a situation where I felt deeply wounded and betrayed by some people that I had trusted. And instead of trying to stifle those feelings and trying to say like, oh, that didn't happen, or I shouldn't feel this way, I was like, hey, look, what they did really hurt. They betrayed my trust. They wounded me deeply. And I took some time to process that information. I did not let myself linger there forever. I just took a couple days, 3 days, whatever it was, just a few days to process that. And then I was able to move on. And I was so surprised at how much quicker I healed emotionally from that and was able to move on. It didn't hang me up indefinitely. I was able to move on beyond that because I took a few moments to just acknowledge what had happened. and to adjust my psyche and the way I approach those people and the way I approach the situation, and to be able to adapt in a healthy way instead of trying to suppress it and shove my emotions down and trying to reshape them into what I thought, quote, they should be. Understanding and acknowledging the negative emotions you may be feeling is the first step in trying to correct them. You first need to just spend a moment with it. So, being able to interrupt that downward spiral. So, the danger of negative emotions is they can get you caught there, especially if you're not spending the appropriate amount of time acknowledging that and sitting with it for just a little bit before moving on. You can get caught in this downward spiral that begins to narrow your focus, as I talked about earlier. So, you can gain that distance, which is the first step, is gaining some distance from the negative emotions to help you break that cycle. The next one is to use positive emotions to help broaden your perspective and build your resilience. So there's been some scientific research, which I will not bore you with quoting. I'm just going to share some of the outcomes of some of that research. They have found that positive emotions promote more ways of thinking and responding compared to neutral or sad emotions. So it can actually literally widen your visual perspective, which I have referenced before in a class I had on stress management, and I'll link it in the comments below. But it can actually help you to physically see more than you were seeing before. So when your negative emotions, especially as they tighten, you're going to see less and less of what's around you, and more your vision is taken up with whatever that negative thing is. But as you induce some positive emotions into that, it starts broadening that. And this, again, does not mean ignoring the negative, but it's including some positive in this. So it literally broadens your visual attention. It also increases your cognition. So your creativity will go up, your problem solving skills will increase. You begin to think of more ideas and more options the more positive you are. In fact, there is some places where they train people on problem solving or overcoming challenges in the workplace, and they encourage them to first have some kind of positive generating activities before they try problem solving, because it will increase the amount of creative solutions that they get out of it, because it increases your cognition and what you're able to think of or conceive. And then it also increases your action urges. So you want to do things a little more. It broadens that out. So a practical example would be with positive emotions, you're more likely to notice a beautiful sky as you're walking to work. Broadened attention. You can come up with a novel idea and with a meeting with colleagues, which is broadened cognition. And on the way home, you're like, hey, let's go do XYZ so we can have some fun tonight. Which is your broadening action urges, because you're introducing positive emotions into the mix. Another interesting thing they found about positive emotions is not only does it interrupt that negative downward spiral, but it actually begins an upward positive spiral. So as you broaden your perspective, you're taking in more ideas, you're looking up some creative solutions, your urges to act are greater, you're more likely to explore those and maybe build new relationships or enjoy new activities, have some new thoughts outside of that, and you continue to increase. And as you continue to build and the upward spiral continues to go, then you might actually build some increased social network, which can help you in the long run. It can build your knowledge. And this in turn, again, upward spiral, enhances your health, enhances your chances of survival, and increases your fulfillment in life. So you can just take a simple example, and you're in this negative downward spiral and you interrupt that, which begins to create a positive upward spiral. And with those positive feelings that increase your urges to act, maybe you decide to sign up for a local soccer team, and you begin to form relationships in that create bonding and increased resilience, and you learn how to overcome challenges as you win against tougher teams. And as you build skills in that, and it increases your confidence in yourself. And then let's say you hit up against something in your life that is difficult. Well, you can call on the information and the knowledge that you learned in those soccer teams, those games and the practice sessions, etc., to help cross that information over into your personal life and help you overcome the challenges you're facing there. You also have an increased social networks. You can reach out to the friends that you formed on that soccer team, and they can encourage you, support you, stand beside you, point out things to help you and remind you of the positive things, which then will decrease the time that the negative event impacts your life in a negative way and increases your overall health. So that's a lot of mumbo jumbo. And hopefully it's not too dry. I find it very interesting, but I'm a little bit of a geek in that sense. But if you can take, this is what's happening, you can figure out what's going on, then you can intentionally insert into this that can help you increase your overall positive feelings, positive outcome, and your overall health. So if you sense yourself starting to go down that negative spiral and you're not pulling back, you acknowledge your feelings and you're having a hard time pulling back out of it, this is some way you can intentionally insert some positivity into that to help you break free of that. So, how could you intentionally insert some positive things into your life that can help change that a little bit? So, one thing, I've talked about this before, but it is so powerful. I'm going to tell you again. Look for good things. Gratitude journal. Find something to be grateful for. Come hang out with us on Facebook on Thursday for Thankful Thursday and write something you're thankful for. Think of something positive. Now, I'm not telling you to ignore the negative. In fact, that can be very toxic. I'm encouraging you to also think of something positive that could be happening at the same time. And this is another novel concept, at least it was for me, is understanding that you can feel both negative and positive emotions at the same time. And when I thought about this, I'm like, no duh, this is so simple. But you can be both courageous and fearful at the same time. Courage is not the absence of fear, but it's doing the right thing in spite of fear. So you can have both fear and courage at the same time, but you choose to go with courage, which would be a positive emotion, and it could help break the cycle of the negative emotion of fear. So you can have both at the same time. You can intentionally choose to change the outcome of how you're feeling in that negative downward spiral of your emotions. When they're feeling out of control, you're feeling that depression, that anxiety really hitting and sinking in. You can make a choice. Take a step back. Analyze what you're feeling, why you may be feeling that way. Take a moment to acknowledge what you're feeling, and then make a choice to begin to broaden your perspective, bring in some positive thoughts to help counterbalance the negative ones, and that will broaden your perspective. And then you can start building resilience. Now, the building resilience is more the long game, but it can lead to there. The third thing I want to touch on just briefly, because we're running out of time, is I want to talk about the recovery benefits of being positive. So if you've been through a negative, stressful time that's really sapped your energy, it's important that you replenish. And you could replenish by focusing on positive things. So you've acknowledged the negative, you've taken that step back, and you can work on replenishing your soul by focusing on positive things. And for those of you that are followers of Christ, this is a fantastic time to get out the Word of God and to look up that promise that God gave you, to review it, to seal it to your heart, to praise God in spite of the circumstances, praise Him for who He is, and thank Him for that. And it can help lift your spirits. You can do this on purpose. You can insert some positivity, do that grateful journaling, or express gratitude for something, whatever that may be, and look for ways that you can insert some positive. You can even, after you've acknowledged the negative emotion first, you can look at how this negative circumstance could be used for good. Now, I'm not talking about like every single thing in your life is good. But God can use every single thing in your life for good. So those things that are so hurtful and so difficult at the time, God can use those to help mold and shape you into something good in the future. So just like for me, I went through a really difficult time with PTSD, depression, anxiety, a bunch of other stuff that you can find in my very first episode. But God has used that to shape me and mold me so that I can be here right here today talking to you. So if you look for those things, to look for the benefit from that, that is resilience. That's finding ways to come back from hard times and to move forward with a positive outlook, an upward look, and look for great things in the future. As we wrap up today, I want to provide you just a quick reminder to sign up for the newsletter. There's a link in the comments below. You'll be the first to know about upcoming workshops, and we have one coming out just around the corner. So if you want to have early access to make sure that you get your seat, make sure to sign up for the newsletter. Hey, my friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with someone you know who may be struggling with depression and anxiety? Also, would you please leave a quick review for the show? Knowing how this podcast is helping you fills my heart with so much joy, and it motivates me for future episodes. For now, it's time for Sam and I to head outside to enjoy some sunshine and fresh air. We'll see you back here on Tuesdays and Thursdays for more great episodes.